I can still see crosshatches on most of it. These things were just stuck on. Man. They're stuck together, that's for sure. Keep your back straight. Got a new hernia and a hemorrhoid out of that one. Debating on how much I wanted to film of this, but I gotta get this engine torn down so we can send everything off to have it rebuilt. The cylinders, I think this one and this one are sort of okay. I have no idea how many miles are on it. I know this one's looking bad, which is pretty common. These tend to sort of detonate on you, especially on modern fuels, so we don't have that good brain damaging lead in our gas. Going to convert this to later ignition, so this side cover is going to go. Oh no. I always kind of joke that anytime you see this red RTV that you're in for some trouble. It's typically the mark of a true craftsman, as it were. Definitely got a lot of crust on it. I think it was probably sitting outside at some point, but we'll start tearing into it. I gotta get my light set up so that y'all can see when doing things without holding the camera. Maybe we start by getting some of these cables out of the way. This clutch cable is probably going to be the more annoying one. I'm going to get some bigger pliers. Try the Milwaukee Torque Lock, which is definitely not a vice grip. There we go. Cable actually looks pretty decent. I don't know that, well, normally I wouldn't run cables this old. I usually replace them, but this one's not, I don't know, consequential, I guess. It looks a little gross. I guess what I'm trying to say is if this thing dies on me, then, you just get a new one on order. Can't tell exactly how fandangled that is, but let's see if we can get it out. These aren't necessarily cheap to replace either, if I remember right. There we go. This cable's a little ate up, and it doesn't actuate. I'm gonna say what I always say, and if you're working on an old bike, man, just get new cables if you can. If you really if you can help it, get new cables. Don't be fooling around with the crusty old ones. Your hands get tired. They'll break on you, or you'll get stuck with the throttle wide open, or who knows what. But don't fool with it. See if we can get the rotor, stator, all that off of there. I think that's a 13 mil. I'm gonna hit it with the impact, I think. That's probably the easiest way. That was barely on there. Probably should read the manual. I say probably because I'm probably not going to do that. I'm very gently pry behind there. There it comes, I think. There we go. Just got a little rust on it. I'm not going to be reusing these ignition parts, but that, you know, there's no reason for me to damage them. I mean, they may still be good. They're definitely a little, got some patina on them. A little bit of jerry rigging there and here. My old lady got me this driver for Christmas from Japan. She didn't go to Japan. My brother went to Japan. And they conspired to get me cool Japanese tools from Japan. Bam. Doesn't look too bad. Those brushes got a lot of oil and crust on them. I mean, everything on this bike does, but, you know. I think that cover's been off, getting smashed around for who knows how long. Oh, I guess there was some oil in it. Whoopsie. Can never have too many oil-soaked rags laying around, you know? You can hear it's got some compression depending on what cylinder it is. Shit. I think my favorite part about being a motorcyclist is you can have 20 flywheel pullers and you'll always need another one. I thought I grabbed 14. It's not a flywheel puller, by the way. It is just a random bolt. I would say that's probably an M10, 14 millimeter head. Now I have a couple of these rotors. For the earlier years, someone's got some dings in there. Honestly, it's probably fine. It's rusty, but because of the distributor cap, just put a whole later system on it, and looks like this seal has been leaking. You can see the dirt and the grime. So that crank seal is probably toast. I mean, there's plenty of dirt in it. All right, now that we got some of the cables out of the way, we'll take the heads off so it's not so top heavy, and then we'll fiddle with the oil pump and the hoses and all that. I'm going to kind of scrape and vacuum because there's a bunch of rat nest material in there, and it'd just be easier if I didn't have it everywhere. Now that we're done with that, I'm just gonna 17 maybe? Yeah, there we go. 17 it is. All right, let's see what we got in there. I think these two, you know, the two ends are good, and this one's got scoring from what I could see, but I don't know how bad, you know, otherwise. So, try and do this without getting dirt everywhere. Whoop. Okay, oh boy, that's an interesting one. Look at that. Look at that piston. Wow. All right. That's great. Can we go back up? Wow. I mean, she's still got compression. you know, for those of you that aren't sure what you're seeing, this is supposed to be relatively flat, and that spot over there is supposed to exist still. That's the ring itself that we're seeing there. So, you know, neat. Honestly, kind of impressive sometimes how much these things take abuse-wise. Let's just turn the phone light on. That'll work. So, I saw some scoring on this side over here on the right side. There's some scoring over here too, but it's not, I mean, like, I can still see crosshatches on most of it. We'll pull the jug off and take a look at it in a little bit, but you know, the cylinder's not terrible, but I got a feeling this one will be. And you can see here what I was dealing with dirt wise. You know, I'll scrape that out more outside. Let's see what the head looks like though. I got those surface mount guys there, the neat little spark plugs. Looks like casting mark, but I'll scrape at it later. Still impressive that it was still running. Yeah, now I just made the mess that I didn't want to make, but that's okay. Oh my, okay. I don't know what we were doing here. We running this on 12 octane. You know, geez. Now that one has some transfer going on there. Get it in there so you can see it a little better. That piston is just all, or that bore is just all scored up. Absolutely hammered. Let's see what's in door number 3. We have one piston. One whole piston. Perfect. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that 1.0 stamp suggests that these are bored over already. I don't have the proper tools to do some good measurement, but I'm going to send them off and, you know, let someone else do that. I probably should take the intakes off before take the jugs off. It's probably looks like a 12. you can see here, I've spilled some red Loctite. That is not coming from my hand, YouTube algorithm. These things were just stuck on. You can see the rust on the studs, and furthermore, you can see that nice slurry in there. All of these cylinders are full of oil. I think that's kind of what happens with, you know, the check valves when they go toast. Which, you know, in a lot of ways is not great, but like if you're gonna park an H1 for a long time, then, you know, I think that having it full of oil is probably generally good. You know, that one's a little rusty, so there's definitely some water in there, but I'm sure we'll be fine. They're, you know, intact. But man, if you didn't see the earlier part, that's shooey. So like that's what the top of the piston should look like. And that's what it does look like. Now, I didn't capture all of it, but some of you may have noticed the oil was leaking. I checked the oil on the transmission, and it looked bone dry, and maybe it's just the angle it was sitting at, but it was not bone dry. It was full. And so when I took the cover off, it started spilling out, and then I moved it down here to drain into the side cover, and then made an even bigger mess. But we can see here a couple things. One, we have a bunch of slimy slop. I assume that's clutch material. I don't know. It's gross though. The engine so far, I don't see anything crazy on the inside there. We're going to take a look at that here and get it the rest of the way tore down. The oil, all of this came out of the cylinders. So probably someone pulled it open or, you know, was pouring a little in there to keep it from locking up, which is great. But the one side did have a bunch of water in it. I don't know if you can see it there, but I pulled some straight water out of that far right cylinder, and there's still oil in there. We'll have to get to it when we split the cases, but she's dirty. She's a dirty birdie, and I made a big mess, but I think most of the oil is cleaned up. You can see some marks there where that thing was submerged for most of its life and which parts of it were not. The pistons appear, these bad ones anyway, were melting. My understanding is this probably from detonation. So either crappy fuel or running lean or running hot or all of the above. I don't know when this was last run, but that's some destruction there. And the other one, I don't know how consequential that is. I know these things can have a tendency to slap, but it still seems like a lot of wear. And the ring is stuck. So I don't know. Maybe all of them have seized up a couple of times. Wouldn't surprise me. That's pure carnage right there, man. I did take the intakes off, and these bores were really stuck on. I think these little oil holes were plugged up. I think they're oil holes. Maybe, well, be oil injected. I'm not sure. But just tapping lightly on the intakes to get them loose. You want to be real careful, especially with these old fins. Using the sand hammer, you know, but just be very careful. You don't want to break a fin off. You don't want to break anything else in there. The bores don't look too terrible. This is actually the first time I'm taking a close look at them, but you know, there's plenty of scoring, obviously, but we can also see plenty of hone marks in there, so looks like maybe, well, I don't know. I think they've been chamfered. Hard to say. Let's look at the other bore. This would have been, yeah, that would have been the far left one. Ironically, one of the, I think that was, yeah, that would have been, I think, this piston. And then let's look at the worst one, or what should be the worst one, which is the center bore. Look at the exhaust side there. It's where it was probably getting the hottest. So, I mean, that aluminum is definitely melted in there. Lots of scoring on the other side. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I mean, this is mostly additive, if you will. There is a little taken out of the exhaust port there, but I think we'll be okay as long as I've got enough clearance in this liner to run another bore out. Like I said, I think it's bored 1 mil over. I think I can go to 1.5. So, let's see. And this final bore, this is the one that had the good piston in it. Ironically, the one that was full of water. Yeah, I mean, I bet all but this second bore you could probably slap pistons in them and run them. I'm not going to do that. I'm not recommending anybody do that. But, you know, I don't know. Heck, if you got a good way to get the aluminum out of there, you might even be able to get away with that too. There's not really any like crazy deep scratches in there, so I'll take it. I'm not going to complain too much. Gonna see what kind of gremlins we got down further in the engine. I think I can just hit it with a JIS on either side there. Probably take the clutch basket off first, and that would work too, but I think I've probably said this a bajillion times, but get yourself a hand impact driver. Don't use these on your JIS. But if you get one of these guys, Vessel makes kit for the tips. But basically you smack this and it will bring that loose. I don't want to force this because I don't know how it comes out. You should read the manual. I usually look it over, but I'm too cocky for that now. There we go. And these guys have plastic on the inside. And you can get brass full metal ones. I'm not going to do that because they're really expensive. And this one seems fine. I think it's time for the fun side. It's a cool little setup. Something else I'll add as I'm going along here. I mean, I put kind of group stuff in bags. Sometimes I'll label it, sometimes I won't. Everybody does it a little bit differently, but I want to make sure the parts are in their right respective places so that when I come back to this, if I take a break for 6 months, I know what's what and I can put it back together. Let's see what these clutches look like. They're stuck together, that's for sure. I don't think they're supposed to be welded together. I'm gonna carefully pry them apart. Yeah, they've just been sitting forever. That looks pretty cooked. I could tell that one in the middle was pretty, it's a different color than the rest. I'm probably not gonna pry all these apart just because, well, I don't care right now. But you know, I can probably clean these up. I don't know if I will or not. Probably get new friction material. I don't know. Honestly, you know, probably easier just to get all new clutch plates at this point. I got a new clutch basket assembly here from, well, I got two. I got one for this H1 and one for the other H1. There is rubber assemblies inside of the basket here, dampers as they were, and they go old, and that's probably the easiest way to rectify that problem. Like a CNC basket, and look very nice for the money. I think 250 bucks. Didn't seem too bad to me. So I'll probably group all this together once I get it off. But half of this assembly is going to get replaced. Although this, well, you can see some of the marks there, but it's not bad really. I don't know if Ralph's cuts down the weight a whole bunch or not, but I know some of the ones the Japanese do bring the weight down. So it would appear that this is a 30 mil ish nut. I don't think I have a 30 mil. I have just about everything else, which is annoying. I have a 32. Yeah, see, I have a 27. I'm trying to decide if I should knock it off with a 32 and hope I don't booger it up, or if I should go get the socket, because I'm going to have one to tighten it back on anyway. Alright, so I was able to source me a 30 millimeter, and yeah, I know I got the shiny on the impact, and you shouldn't do that, but it's going to be like twice. I'll order an impact on the internet, do as I say, not as I do. There's probably a push rod in here. It almost looks like, I don't know if that's corrosion or if it's Loctite. It might be both. I found some cool surprises back here we'll look at in a minute. I'll just pull that whole assembly off of there. I guess it is supposed to be that way. Usually you just fold them over, but this goes behind here, and then this digs into here, and I guess it's got locators. Make sure we don't lose all this stuff. And y'all can't see. Big old needle bearing in there. I bet that's expensive to replace. See if I can tip the clutch push rod out of there. I'm sure it's in there anyway. So with, oh, we got some, looks like aluminum shavings. That's nice. Love that. The clutch is probably overheated a couple times. It looked like maybe it's drag raced or something. I don't know. But usually there's a clutch push rod, and then there will be like a little ball bearing on the other end here. Well, Well, no ball bearing, but we do have 2 pieces of metal. I assume that's factory. Again, I haven't looked at the manual on these, but we'll figure it out when we put it back together. Sorry about the train. Now I'll bring you all in here on the gear on the main shaft, unless there's some kind of magic for me to get it off. Let's see. Just make sure I get all the dirty, nasty stuff on here. Got some level of crust there. It's pretty stuck on. Respectfully, do as I say, not as I do. It's just a little stuck, that's all. A little heat probably would have helped, but no. There we go. That's the fun part. So someone's been in here. You know, I always kind of joke that the red RTV is the marker of a bad mechanic. And you know, if you've used red RTV before, we'll pretend you didn't. You don't need to put any sealant on here. It's not necessary. It might be necessary if you're trying to reuse a gasket that should be replaced. And the cost of that red RTV is going to be about the same as the new gasket, so why are we kidding ourselves? You can see here there's also some silicon carne, and that might be what is down here that has like dissolved, because this is pretty goopy is the best way I can explain it. I mean, really, who knows after this engine's been sitting that long, but this is starting to deteriorate, so it wouldn't surprise me. But our solution to a leaking crankshaft seal was to smear silicone on it, and you know, the other crank seal was leaking too, but this is not how we repair this. If you're not familiar with two-strokes, the crankcase itself is part of the combustion process, and so it needs to be sealed. Otherwise, it's going to suck air in, or if it's on this side, it's going to suck oil in, and we're also not going to have good compression. If you have multi-cylinder two-stroke like this, then each individual chamber has to be sealed, and if it's not, well, it's not going to run right. Usually they idle high and run funny and just run like crap, and this is, you know, the answer there is they probably did this because that's an expensive answer to this problem. So I probably don't need to pull this, but it does look boogered up. So I might want to replace that. I don't know. I might be able to straighten it out. Funny, interesting fact is this shift shaft goes all the way through. So it can technically put the shifter on either side. That looks like it's staked in there maybe. I'll have to check on that just to make sure that we don't break anything. Looks like a helicoil in there. Yeah, that looks like a helicoil, so maybe someone has been in here. It didn't look like it. Or maybe that's the way it was from the factory. I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave this guy on here. Take that out separate so I don't have anything Terribly misplaced. Oh, you know what that is? That's like some kind of RTV or whatever they use to put in the cases. Get a bag for these little guys, and then I think we can flip it over, get oil everywhere, and split the crankcase finally. I don't think there was a metal peen in there. It looked like they just smashed it to dimple it out so it wouldn't let loose. But we'll probably put Loctite on all of this stuff anyway. I've been scraping stuff out of this engine and cleaning it as I go, but when I tilted it up, this came back out. I don't know, that's vile. I'm gonna use the old persuasion gun just because it's pretty safe in this space, I think. They make it go a lot faster. Or the bolts will get stuck. I swear every one of these is getting stuck in here. Well, I think that's all of them, I think. We'll find out. I don't know if there's any pry points on the old girl or not. I guess I could give some of these a gentle tap. I don't want to round off any of them. Might want to flip it back over too. There we go. Probably have some dowels just hanging on here. Again, I don't want to pry on the case halves. Sound like the transmission just came apart in there. Probably should have flipped it over. I don't know. Too late now. Yeah, you can see. Well, you can't see. But these pins are all rusted. Well, they're just the bolts, I guess. So, I'll just keep... I'll have to make sure we grease those up so this doesn't happen again. Hopefully this bike isn't left in the dirt in the future, though. Oh, some kind of needle bearing just let go on me. That's great. Love that. This gear's been run super hot. I'm sure that's common. But we'll have to deal with that. I don't think our crankshaft looks too bad though, really. Didn't exactly expect it to be the best part. I just wonder how hard it is to get a hold of a gear. Looks like some material transfer here. Well, you guys can't see. I have to move it. Looks like there's wear down in here. But that one's definitely no good. The shifter forks has some signs of wear. I'll try and get those up so we can look at them too. Just need to make sure I don't lose everything while we're cleaning all this up. Well, there's, you can see up here on the crank where it's been rusted away, I think. I'll just finish tearing her down and get this crank sent off. Crank doesn't seem bad at all. I'm not too worried about it. This one has some pitting up here in the little end, but Mr. Charlie Smith has spares. So be it. Let you guys see down in here before I call it a day. Just a lot of schmoo, and like I said, got some heat damage, so keep track of everything. Appreciate everyone watching. Let me know what projects you guys got going on if you're working on a triple or on a four, whatever. They're all cool in my book.